Welcome to Expanding Jimdo. In this video series, we're going to talk about how to hack apart a Jimdo template to get many of the benefits you would normally need to use a custom template for. So how can you make a fancy modern looking website out of an existing Jimdo template that might not be as modern looking? And we're going to cover a lot of different topics, and we're going to go relatively quickly because we want to cover so many different areas. To help with this, I'm going to post a link to this slideshow with all the links to the pages I'm using when I post this video itself. We're going to talk about how you can modify Jimdo templates with CSS, so how you can make changes to this. We're going to go over some very quick basics of CSS if you're not familiar with it, but playing around on your own is going to be the best way to move quickly in that area. We're going to talk about making full width sections, and in particular how to use fixed background images for these sections to create a parallax effect on your website. We're going to talk about adding some icons to your Jimdo websites using Font Awesome. We're going to talk about how you can make changes to the mobile version of this website that we're going to create. So make something that's going to be different on the responsive mobile view that will look different on the desktop view. So that we can change some things or hide some things so we can tailor the experience a bit differently for people accessing the website on their phone. And finally, although we can't do a lot about the speed of the Jimdo website, we can change the way that it feels to the visitors. And one trick I've been using lately is adding a preloader to a Jimdo website, which plays an animation until everything in the website is fully loaded, and then it has a nice smooth transition into that website. This can solve a number of problems. One, it shows something very quickly to the user, so they're more patient and able to wait. And two, it means that the images and content on your website don't snap into place as they load. Everything can load at once. So that's our goal for this this video, and let's see how well we do on that, okay? I've already loaded up a couple things. I created a brand new website, and I haven't done anything with it in Jimdo using the Malaga template. This is our new site admin, if you're not familiar with it yet. It'll be rolled out to everybody very soon. And I've got two tabs of that open. One of the tabs is it in view mode, and one is it in edit mode. This is my preferred way of working with websites in Jimdo instead of using our display option. The preview is great, but just being able to see it on the page on a different tab is much quicker and easier. And we're going to be doing some inspection of the page using the Chrome DevTools. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I also have a website, expanding.jimdo.com, which you should be very familiar with. I'm going to link to a lot of tutorials I've posted here already. Yeah, all those links again are going to be in this slideshow that I'll be able to present for you. So, moving right into the first option, I'm going to go ahead and open this tutorial, and we'll access that in a little bit. But let's talk about some real basics with CSS. So what is CSS? CSS is cascading style sheets. And this is how you make things look differently on websites now. You used to do everything in HTML, but about a decade ago they introduced CSS that you could separate the form of the way the website looks as opposed to what the content on that website is. And if you're not familiar with it, I would strongly recommend working through some of the basics on your own. These are really great resources where you can learn more about that. But the cool thing about CSS is once you understand a few basic concepts, you can always just Google the specific attributes and things you need to change, but you just need to know the basics first. So we're going to cover that. And you can also test things with developer tools in Chrome. We're going to talk about that very soon too. So this is the basic way of what a CSS statement looks like. So item, attribute, and value. And then you can chain these together, separating them with a semicolon. So the item here could be something like H2. So this would change all the medium-sized headings and make them these attributes and values. And the attribute could be something like font size, and the value could be 18 pixels. And after you put that CSS statement onto your site, then all medium headings would be a font size of 18 pix. Now, a lot of these things are already built into Jimdo, so you don't have to play with them too much, because one of the advantages of modifying an existing Jimdo template instead of creating your own custom Jimdo template is you can still use the style editor. And I advise using the style editor as often as possible. Use the tools when they're there, but then go ahead and know how to change additional things if our tools don't allow you to make those changes. So here's this website. I'm going to make some changes right away on my own. So I'm going to go into the style editor, design, style, and I'm going to make some changes right away. So I like to start by setting the color scheme and the headings and fonts in the style editor as the first thing I do. So let's see what happens if we do black as a color scheme. I like to set my fonts up front. I'll do Oswald for my headings, and then I will do, let's do Droid Sans for the text. Now that I've got my template settings set with the style by element off, I'm going to turn style by element on, make some specific changes. One, I want this to not be, I'm going to make this black, and I'm going to make it fully opaque, which means I'm going to definitely have to make some changes to these font colors. So I can make this white, maybe make the active one, or something like this might work. Well, I'm going to keep the background color transparent, and that seems pretty good. While I'm in here, let's save that. And while I'm in here, let's also make, I want to make the background white. We're going to do some fun things with the background of this website later, but I want to actually start by making the background white instead of this gray color. I'm moving kind of quickly. This should all be review for anyone watching this video, so hopefully that is the case. And now we've got a slightly different look to our website. It's a little bit cleaner. I like the solid white and the black top bar. I'm going to be creating a website for a fictional coffee shop. I'm not sure what I did right there, but I just want to change my... I'm going to be making a website for a make-believe coffee. And let's see if I have a landscape version of this logo in white. So we're in a pretty good spot. So one thing right away I can see that I don't like this large space here. So this is an area where we can check to see if it's something we can do with the style editor. I don't think it is though. So if I play with this area, yeah, there's not really anything I can do that helps me make this area smaller. So this is a case where maybe we can do something using CSS to fix this for us. So the first thing we want to do, and I cover all of these steps in this tutorial that I linked to. I'm not going to go through it step by step because it gives you a lot of different examples. But the main thing I want to teach you isn't specifically how to change one particular thing. It's the method that you should use to think about and what you should go through to make these changes. Okay, so but I would definitely reference this, but don't, like I said, don't look at the code examples as much as the method and the technique that I'm going about doing it. And we're going to do those same techniques here. So let me refresh my view mode. And now I've got my make-believe coffee one here. And I'm going to right-click in the space, and I'm going to go to Inspect. And again, I'm using Google Chrome. This should work in both Mac or PC. And once I'm in Google Chrome, I have a couple of different panels. And the way this works is as you move over here, this is the code, the HTML of the website. It's going to highlight different parts of the screen. And then if I click into something, some of these are drilled down, I see the CSS attributes for that, and I can actually make changes to these. So the thing I want to find is the space between this headline. If I can always kind of zoom in by inspecting a particular element. So it kicks me right here. So I see this headline, and then I see the CSS for it. Now if I wanted to, I can change what's viewing. This is just changing my view of it. This isn't changing what's actually on the website. But I can use it to test different CSS statements, and then I can apply them in the technique I'm going to show you next. So let's see. So we've got this content area, and then one of the cool things is once you have something highlighted here, you can scroll down and you see this box model, and it shows you what the padding, the width, the height, the padding, the border, the margin are in. So then you can test different things for that. So I think it's somewhere around here. Okay, and it's color coded as well. We see this orange color here. That means margin. So we can see that this element, this JTPL section main, has a top margin of 200 pixels. And that's what's causing this extra space here. So I can test some different sizes here. So I could try all the way down to 100 pixels. And that gets a little bit too close. So maybe we should try something like 120 pixels. Still a little bit too much. Maybe another 140 pixels. And I'm just going to go a little bit more. So it's not a drastic change from what we had, but changing that top padding from 200 pixels to 120 pixels has made a difference that we couldn't do otherwise. So now what do we do? So we can see right here what it's done is it's written this for us by changing that, and it's going into this piece here. This dot means it's a class. Sometimes there's classes and sometimes there are IDs. If we go and look through some of these things, we can see that an ID can only be used once, whereas a class can be used to apply things multiple times. So let's just keep that in mind. Classes are identified using a period in front of it, a dot, whereas a ID is using a pound symbol or a hash tag, I guess is what it is today. And that's how you can identify particular instances of something. So like if you put H2 as the item, it would change all H2s. If you found an H2 that had an ID of services BG or services H2 and put that here, it would only impact that specific instance. A class would apply, you could put .gtpl header here and it would change anything for something that had that class associated with it. Now let's see what we had here if I go into here. So we want to take JTPL main section and we want to give it a margin top of 160. And what that's going to do, since this is cascading, it's going to override what the Jimdo template is already using. Okay, so we just want to find a way to add that in there. And the way we do that is by using the edit head section. You can find this in the settings. And in this example, I'm actually using a Jimdo Pro website, which I would recommend. You have a little bit more options. So even if you're working with a customer, you can contact Jimdo support and ask that we upgrade the site to a Jimdo Pro trial, which will allow you to use these other features as well. So I'm going to go into Edit Head, and you have two options. You can do it for the entire website, or you can do it on a page-by-page basis. I guess I haven't actually upgraded this to Jimdo Pro. Like I would need to do that, and I might make that happen here in a second, but we'll just go ahead and do it just for this right now. So I know that I want to change .html section. One thing I need to do is I need to put this inside of a block of style, and this is what allows me to put CSS code into the website here. And then I just need to put the brackets here, and I want to do margin top 160 pix, and then I need to close this. And now once I save this, it applies that to our site. You see it adds some other code in there. You can ignore that, just leave it be. But this is the main part, so this is where we can change it. So if I refresh the site that I was playing with, great, I see that my change is now there in the code. Now, other things you might want to do, there are parts where you might want to hide things. A lot of templates have a breadcrumb trail or something like that. And there's a great CSS property called display that you can change to make that hide. So for example, we wouldn't ever want to do this, but just to demonstrate the concept, say I want to hide this logo. And maybe you'd want to do that for just one page. You could use the edit head by page and do this technique. So I'm going to inspect on this logo, and I see this image. Now what I tend to do is I kind of look on the left here and kind of work my way up to the very top of it. You can see how these are all nested. So if you work your way up, you see at the very top, okay, now we're at the whole bar, but we just want to do the logo. So once I'm here, I can actually type in some test stuff here, display none. And we can see that's all we would need to do to hide that. So to hide this in the code, all I would need is class JTPL thing display none. So if we go back into here, look at our settings, go to edit head, and we just make another line here. We need to make sure we have the dot in front of it. Display none. Save that. If we refresh over here, we see that it's live, not just on our thing. Now, a more practical thing is maybe you'd want to hide this whole top bar on a single page. Maybe you were making a landing page and just wanted to hide all that. So you could do the same thing in that case. So we would just have to find where that thing is. So, okay, here we go. JTPL header, navigation colors. So we can test that up here. We see JTPL header. Let's try display none. And that hides everything there. So instead of doing the logo, we could change it for this and then make a landing page of one particular page of our website, should we want to do that. And save. Now, sometimes this can make it a little bit tricky to edit some of the pages. So if you do run into that problem, like now I can't move through my navigation while I'm in edit mode, what I do is I log in to the website and then I go to my other tab and I navigate to where I want it to be, and then I can just use the edit that's down here to get to it. So you got to work around it sometimes because we're hacking the system. We're making it do things it doesn't want to do. But we can see with just a few little pieces of code, we can really do some dynamic changes to a Jimdo website template. You can change almost anything. So you can pretty much resize, move, hide most things on the website. The things that I would avoid trying to do are right here. Don't try to change the template from what it actually is. There's main things that make up a Jimdo template, and that's the size and placement of the logo, where the navigation exists, and then the content area width. Those are the things I would recommend not doing that. If you need to change those things, I would actually start by looking for a different template to begin with. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a really great resource called jimdo.design, which I have open right here, which shows you all the templates. So this is how I start most projects. I usually know, okay, they want a centered logo with navigation below it, and they want a sidebar on the left or the right, or they don't want a sidebar. And then I use those attributes to look through here to find the one that's going to work best for me. It's really helpful, and it can speed up your start process significantly. So, with all that in mind, let's continue on with our existing website and start doing some other cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep my first change, but I'm going to get rid of this hiding of the top section, the top bar, because I actually do want my top bar. And okay, we see everything's back here as it should be. Great. One thing I'm noticing is that when I changed my background, I actually left the background on the content area. So I've got a semi-transparent white background on top of a white background. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that really quick while I'm thinking about it. So I think that's right here. Yep, and we see right here that you can see the checkerboard partly through it. So that's a semi-transparent white. So I'm just go ahead and make that all transparent, so I don't have to worry about that, and save that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to cover is I want to talk about some full width sections. Now I've got a tutorial that I wrote a while ago on how to do this, and I talk about a couple different methods of how to do it. You can do it where you have actually let me go to this example website. You can have it where it's a solid color that goes all the way across. You can have it be an image which is kind of fixed to the page, or you can have an image that scrolls with the page. So we see here's a brown background color that's just a solid color. We've got a image that scrolls with the page, and then we've got this more fixed on the page version where the background scrolls beyond it. It's kind of a parallax effect here. That's what we're going to focus on today. There is the technique that I describe in this tutorial, which you can look up on your own and see the code to do each of those. The one for the coffee beans image here, isn't my favorite because the beans are just so wide. So if you have the image of the beans are only so wide. So if you have a wide enough monitor, you'll actually see the edges of this image. For example, if I make this smaller, you see where it's actually, I'm just zooming out. Now you can see where the edge of that is, whereas the image below it is still full screen properly. So I'm not a big fan of this one. Some people have particularly asked for it, so I put it in there. But using the background color and using this parallax one is something that we see quite often. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this technique, this parallax technique, and make a full width section that appears directly below this coffee, make-believe coffee top bar. Right now I've got this content in here, which isn't really what I want for my website. This is just what started here, so I'm going to go ahead and delete some of this. And we're going to replace it with a new block that's going to be a more modern kind of call to action at the top of the website. We'll leave this other stuff for later. So the first thing we want to do is you want to start by creating a columns element. And the great part about that is that by using a columns element, what we're going to do is we're going to use a snippet of JavaScript to be able to modify the CSS on it. But if we're using a columns element, we'll still be able to maintain editable content within that section. So this is really cool because this is a way that you can put text over an image, or you can put a button over an image, and you can use spacing to kind of change the way it looks like. I like the concept a lot. So we'll actually make two full width sections. We'll do one with just like a heading kind of further down the page, and we'll do one for our main call to action at the top. So to start with, we're going to create a columns element, and let's go ahead, create a columns element, and you don't even have to have multiple columns in. You can just have the single column in it. We just need it as a container. So if I edit this, delete one of these columns, and then inside of here, I'm going to let's add a heading. I've got a large heading. I'll change my style to make that centered. And I think that's all I want to do with that right now. And then I also am going to go ahead and have a line of text, kind of like what our call to action would be. Take advantage of our great offers. And I'll go ahead and center that. And then underneath this, I'm going to put a button element. And we're going to center it. Let's see what our default styles are. We'll have this one right now. And we'll have this we'll have it be a linked contact. You could have it be whatever the call to action actually is. And sign up for have our action that we want to do here. Now, I also want to have a little extra space here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spacing element still inside the columns element. I want to put a spacing element at the bottom and at the top. So I'll have a 50 pixel here. Let's go ahead and duplicate that. And then we'll move this second one. Oh, these guys aren't in the column, are they? All right, so now everything's in this columns element, which is how we want it. So let's refresh over here, and we'll see the changes to the website. And the next step in this is we need to identify the ID of the columns element. So we're going to use the same trick that we just used while modifying the website in CSS, and we have to scroll through and find the actual columns element. And what you can do is you can kind of use this as a guide. If you see class J H grid, that's actually a columns element. So here's the unique ID for that one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this CCM one. And I'm going to paste that aside so I've got it. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just open a little notepad thing to keep track of the stuff I want to keep track of. So if we were just going to do a color, we could actually pick a color code. For example, I'll just use this color code. But the other way we do, I'll show you how to do color first, and then we can show you how to do the actual image version. So we're going to take that one and we're going to make it that color for the background. Now I'm going to skip down to the part where we add the JavaScript. So there's a couple things we need to do. We're going to use jQuery. So I want to make a copy of this line and add it to the top of my edit head. Again, the instructions for this are in the tutorial. And I'm going to go to Settings, Edit Head. And I just need to put that in there. Perfect. That's what I need for that. And next I need to modify. So what this block does, it uses that JavaScript, that jQuery thing to do, and it's going to wrap a new div section around the columns element. This is how we're adding the background. And what I need to do is copy this block into my edit head, and then I need to replace this piece right here with the ID that I already copied. So let's take this, and I'll go ahead and I'll put my JavaScript at the bottom here. We can see I've got some nice comments in here already. And I'm going to change a couple things. So first I'm going to grab the ID that I saved, and I'm going to put it right here because that's what I want to modify. I want to wrap this div around it. And I'm going to change the div ID. Instead of being section 1, I'm going to call this call to action. So it's really clear on what I'm doing with this block. Alright, so I'm going to save that, and if we go back here, we still see nothing's actually changed because we haven't actually done anything. But if we actually inspect this, we should see, if I go all the way up to here, right here we see there's a new div in here called call to action. That's what that JavaScript is done. Now we're going to modify the CSS for that div to make the changes to our site. Kind of cool, eh? So let's go back and see the next part for the CSS. So this is for the solid color background. I'm going to go ahead and copy. Actually, I already have a style block, so I'm just going to grab this piece. Now you'll see there's one piece up here which is to prevent side scrolling, so you need to make sure that's in there as well. And when you see this slash and asterisk, what that means is this line is a comment. So put those in as often as you can to make it super clear to yourself or anyone else working on your website what that piece of code does. This will save you a bunch of trouble in the future, and your clients will be very happy about it if they ever have to have someone else work on their website. So I'm just going to go inside my style area here and put these in here. And actually, while I'm at this, to keep it clean and consistent, I'm going to take one of these comments and I'm going to say what this block does here that I already put in from before. So this makes the space between the top bar and content area smaller. Cool. So then I've got this piece which is preventing side scrolling, and down here we see this is the part I need to change. This is the background color. So right now it's saying it's going to be CCC. I want it to be, I don't even know what color this is. We're just putting in a color to demonstrate the concept. I only want to have one of the pound tags there. So this is, and I need to change this name from section 1 to whatever I called it before, which was call to action. Alright, so now it should be a full width section. That's what this part right here does. It's going to make it full width from edge to edge, and it's going to have this background color. Let's take a look and see if that worked. Bam, look at that. We've got a solid green area. Now let's take a couple of things to fix what we have already. We see there's this white space here. For this effect to really look correct, we want to actually get rid of all this white space. Now we know what this is from because we've already played with it before. So I'm pretty sure if I just go in here and I change this to something like 110 pixels, I just know that from playing with it earlier in this video. Let's see what that looks like here. Oh, almost got it. 90. Now we should have a nice clean seam on that top. There we go. Now, just to be safe, let's see what this looks like in mobile view. So I'm going to actually just shrink my website down, and I see that I already have an issue here. So I will tackle that later when we talk about modifying CSS just for mobile view. So let's go back to the full width thing now. Okay, so we've seen how to do this with a solid color, but what about a background image? So there's one step we need to do that we didn't have to do with the color one, and that's we have to find a way to host this background image. And Jimdo, as we know, doesn't have a great way to do that as it is right now. If you're doing a custom template, you can use that FTP-like folder, but what I do is I try to do a kind of a real hacky solution that works really well for me and for my clients. And that's by I create a hidden assets page. So I just add a new page to my website. I call it assets, and I make it hidden. And what I do is I use this as a place to put content that I'm going to want to use. So, and what I normally do is I just use file download elements within here. So I know that it's not doing any manipulation of any images or anything like that that I put up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some images. So I think I'm going to take this coffee bean image that I'm going to use at some point, and then I'll just duplicate this. Let's see what I've got. And let me check the size on that. When you're talking something that's going to go edge to edge, you want it to be at least 2,000 pixels or it's going to look a little bit off. So this one's 2,500 pixels. The size looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one as my other one. So let's upload this. And now I've got two images to work with. Now if I go to this page, to the view version, switch to the assets page, I see my things and I can right click on the download thing and copy link address. And now I've got a address that I can use in my code. If I paste that in here, we see right here, that's what we need. So, and I can verify like what I'm trying to do here. So with the tutorial, here's how to add solid color. This time we want to do the fixed image background. So we see there's a little bit more code to it. So let's grab the code that we need here. We've already got this part in it, so I'm just going to grab this part. And let's go back to our home page. So we're looking at the right thing. And go to settings, edit head. I'm going to go ahead and replace this block right here. It's where I set the color. I need to go ahead and name this back to call to action again. And say a place where it says paste URL here. And if I go ahead and paste that in, everything else looks like it should be working. Let's save this. It's loading up, and as we scroll up, we see, oh, we don't have that much content down here, but if we had more content, you can see it already has a parallax field to it. Now, we don't really have to do that at the top. Like, I like using it at the top because I really like having a call to action be at the top of the website. I think this is a very modern approach to websites. But you can also put ones across the middle of the page. So say we have, if we look at our about page, Right now we don't have a whole lot in there. And notice my modification is affecting all the pages. So like I've got that really pushed up against the top, so I probably need to undo that a bit, or I can actually add a spacer in here. So if I add an element, add a spacing, let's make this 200 pixels, and now I've just pushed that 200 pixels up here. So and what that's doing is that's going to allow me to, there, that looks better. I don't need that one right there. So this is just another page. Now if I wanted to, I could put another full width section here. And how do I do that again? I get the columns element, I put what I want in it. I don't even have to put anything in it. I could just make an image. And we could just fill this space with a spacer. Something like 300 pixels. Now if I switch over here, I see the space where it is. I'm going to inspect to find the ID for this one. I see it's on HGrid. It looks like the right one, so I'm going to copy this. Go into my menu, to my settings. And now we just kind of duplicate the same process we did. So the first thing we need to do is paste this so I don't lose it. Then I'm going to just copy this line and make a second one. So this first one, we'll say full with section for call to action. This next one is going to be full with section on about page with full width image. And now we take this ID, slap that in here, and we'll just call this about image because we're on the about page. Maybe we should specify a page on here. And then since we're already up here, we can take this. This is the code for full width section on homepage. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that whole block. Full width on about page. We made the ID, I believe we called it about image. Now we just need the new URL. So I need to go back here, look at my assets page. Let's get this one, copy link address, and I can replace this, whoops, with this coffee bean image. So now we've got this parallax effect for this image in the middle of the page. Next we're going to make some icons for our website. So let's take a look at that tutorial and try to speed up our last couple things because we're kind of running out of time here. So to use Font Awesome, the first thing we need to do, and if you're not familiar with Font Awesome, it will let you add all of these icons to a website, and you can, these are come across as text, so you can actually change them, the sizing of them based on CSS for text, which is really helpful, and it gives you nice clean icons for all kinds of things, including social media icons. If we look Facebook, we've got Facebook ones, you've got credit card ones. You can find icons for tons of different things, and you can purpose them as however you want, and it's a free to use service. And The first thing we need to do to use it is to just put this block of code at the top of our edit head, just like we did with the jQuery. So if we scroll to the top here, we see the one there. Let's put this one in there as well. And now once we have that, we can use it. Now, normally you just have to do something like this to add the icon. So you basically go to this page, which the link is on the tutorial, and let's find something that we want to use. Like, say we like this envelope icon, and they give you the block of code to use on your site. So in this case, I should be able to pull this block. Let's go to my home page and say we wanted to add an icon underneath this. So the way I would do this is I would use a HTML widget element, and I would just paste that code in here. Now, on most websites that should be enough to work. Jimdo works a little bit differently, and there's a trick to it. It took me a little bit to figure it out, but it's pretty helpful to know. And if you look in this tutorial, you'll see you have to replace this nothing inside this brackets with this non-breaking space. And once you do that, you should be able to see that icon. So if I put this, paste that in there, normally this was working for me. Is it white? Okay, it just doesn't like that icon. Oh, alright. So I'm not sure why that didn't work for the other one. But we put a different block of code in here, and we can see that this PDF icon works just fine. I can also use some inline styles, which is a different way of doing CSS, to add some color and a font size in it. I can also, I believe, do text align center this way, and that did not work. But I could wrap it in a P style. And then we can center it that way, and we can manipulate the pics here, so we can make that 100 pics. I normally, when I'm working with code in Jimdo, I will do it in an external editor and then paste it in. Here I'd probably want a little space here or something. And I could do a different icon for each of these. I can also change the color with that code. Right now I've got a color, whatever, I can make it black. .0, 0, 0. You can make it into a link using HTML, but you've got this entire library of fonts to work with. I'm honestly not sure why that particular one didn't work. Maybe because, oh, you know what? It's a new 4.7, and I believe I'm grabbing 4.6 here, so that's the difference with that. So I can probably update this link, or you can look on. But there are other ones that I'm sure are not in there. What would be another one that we could use? Looks like bar chart is not one in there. So let's grab the one from bar chart. To prove my point here, and I grab this guy, and that should work right away. And there we go. So you can see how this could be super helpful and useful. You could make these links. You could do a lot with those. Pretty cool. All right, what do we have next on our agenda in here? Changes to the mobile CSS version only. All right, so now if I shrink this down, you see we hit our breakpoint because the menu changes to this method, and all of a sudden we've got this extra white space here. So we need to make a way for this to be different on the mobile version than the desktop version. So first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what the code is we need to change. So I'll use my little notepad trick and my inspect thing, going back to the first thing we did in the video. This works on mobile just the same as everything else. We have to figure out what's causing that extra space up there. So I can see it already. It's got something to do with that border at the top. So I've got a top margin of 90 pixels. So on the mobile version, what do I want to make this? 10? Make it 0. Alright, so we got that, and there's still more space we need to get rid of. So first let's take a look at that. So we need to make it so JTPL section main has a top, whoops, JTPL section main top margin 0 pix. Let's see anything else we need to change in here as well. So that got us that far. So what's this space right here? Okay, I can see green, so that's going to be this padding. So there's a top padding that I need to get rid of. And make that, does that just need to be 0? That needs to be 0 pixels. So where was that on? JTPL content, apparently. JTPL content. And I'm going to do padding top 0 pix. So these are two changes that I want to make only to the mobile version. All right. And actually, while I'm in here, let's do one more example. If I look at about. So remember, we set this with a heading, with a spacing element. Well, spaces work differently on the mobile version. It puts a default size on it. So I want to change that default size. So let's see what we can do to fix that as well while we're looking into changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just do a hard code hack on this one. We know we're in the about ID. We know it's about image. So what we could do is just make more changes to that about image in just the mobile version. Right now it's kind of got a fixed height here, but what if we change this height from 64 to 200 pixels? We can see that's much more what we would like to have on this mobile version. So another change that we're going to want to make only for the mobile version is we're going to want to make about image height 200 pix. So these are three things we want to do only to the mobile version. So now how do we do that? Now if we go into, let's clear out some of these extra things. I've got a tutorial link to on the slideshow again. If we go into here, make CSS changes to only the mobile or desktop version of a website, we'll see some examples. So this is syntax we use only on a mobile site. So if we take this block of code, what it's called is a media query. And what it is it basically wraps around your existing code. So we can see the code we had disappears here, and it has something that says this will only happen if the max width of the browser window is 768 pixels. So that means if it's wider than that, it ignores this block. So let's take this block. Let's go ahead and put it within the style area that we've already got inside of our style area we got right here. All this code. Let's put this new block in here. Let's give it a comment so we know what it is. This makes fixes to the mobile version of the website. And then we just need to put the code that we already figured out right inside here. Yeah, I've got some weird tabs going on. This is kind of ugly, but it kind of should get the idea. So the main thing is that it's all wrapped with this piece right here, which is max width 768, and then we can put whatever we want inside here. Okay, this is from the example code. I don't need that. So I just need these 3 pieces. And let's save, and let's see what happens when we change. So the first thing we can tell right away is that nothing's actually changed to our existing website in desktop view. It's the same as what it was. If we inspect this, we can see that this is definitely larger than 200 pixels tall. It's 300 pixels tall. So cool, nothing's changed there. But then if I shrink this down into phone mode, or if we pulled it up on a phone browser, we see that we've got the 200 pixels there. And if we go to the home page, oh, we didn't get one. So this is a good example of something that could, let's figure out what's going on and why this isn't working. Oh, it's because I said top margin instead of margin top. So here's an example of, you can always Google, just make sure the correct phrasing on that. This is me moving too quickly and ignoring something important. And let's see what happens when we put that in there. I kind of like it when these things break when I'm doing examples, because I think it's important to see how to troubleshoot some of this stuff, because that's not always simple for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience. So, okay, let's refresh and shrink it down again. Go into phone version. And this time we can see that our phone version looks really great. And we still have that, got rid of that space at the top there. Cool. Now there's one last quick thing I want to go through, and that's going to be how to add a preloader. We don't have a lot on this website, so it loads pretty quickly, but when you get up there with, if you have a lot of images, a lot of background images and things like that, it can get kind of slow to doing some of the changes for loading a new page or switching from page to page. So we've got this technique where we can use a preloader that we talked about. If you want to see an example of existing page, this is a website I designed for a famous guy in Germany. And you saw that little dynamic, that little animation right here. So it loads pretty quickly because there's not a lot of content on it, but some of the pages are a little bit slower, like this one. And you saw that it makes it a much smoother approach to it, but it's something really easy that you can do on your own. It's got a couple of things you need to do. First, you need to go through each page of your website, and you need to add this into a widget HTML element at the top of the page. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to do it on the home and the about pages. So I'm just going to add it right here. This shouldn't add any space or anything. It's just kind of something that tells the site to look for it. I'm going to go to my about page. I'm going to add it in here. All right. Next, we need to find an animated spinner to use. So I'll give you a link to a place where you can get one. You can make these. They're pretty easy to use. Let's see. I can close this down and maximize this again. There's one that's right here, so we can you can modify these and pick your own. I'm just going to go ahead and make a GIF of this. Right now, GIF is the best way to do it, and if you use the make a GIF option, it will record it and allow you to download it for free. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to go ahead and rename this on my other screen right now real quick, just to make it default.gif without I apparently have another one downloaded. I can close this, and we've already kind of tackled this problem. How do we get it up here? We're going to use our assets folder again. And let's duplicate this. And then I'm going to go ahead and upload the default image here. we're going to get the URL for that because we're going to need it at some point. So let's go back to our assets page and copy this link address. I'm going to put it in my little TextPad helper so we have it when we need it soon. Next, we need to put the CSS into the edit head. We've done some CSS before, so we can just copy this block, go into our edit headings, edit settings edit head area, and we want to make sure it's in the CSS section. So go ahead and put it here. So we've already got a comment on it. This is a preloader and it needs that to work. And we can see there's a space in here where it needs a link to the GIF. So I'm going to take the link that I'd already found and I'm going to put it into here. And I think that should actually be in quotes. So let's put that in quotes. You can set color and everything. I've got it set to white right now, which is, I think, fine. And now we need to add some JavaScript here. So I'm just going to put this at the top of my edit head again. Actually, I've already got jQuery, so I'm just going to grab Modernizer and this other thing and put it into my head. We'll put it right after that piece right there. And I believe that should be all we need to do. So now if we go back to our home site, it loaded really quickly, but you can see that it's there. There's a better example. So using that can be really helpful. It can dramatically reduce the feeling of waiting while a visitor is on your website waiting for new code to do it. I know I use it on my own site, I think. So yeah, right here, it helps a lot, and it works on the phone as well, which is helpful.